Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may not have prepared you for. I am AJ, and sitting across me, my co-host, Jason. Jason, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well, AJ. I'm, recovering from yesterday evening. Pretty big event.
Yep, we had a big event. Second to, well, I don't know. I guess it would be second to another international event, but it was the one that happens in February. I think everybody knows what that is. So we're recording the Monday after it. So we're kind of, I know I'm hurting. I don't know about you.
What was your Super Bowl Eve like?
Food. Lots and lots of food. That's the thing that I love about this event is the parties, the atmosphere that can come with it. And I like to have people over. And that's what we had last night. We had some friends over. We had a feast. We still have food left over that we're probably going to eat for a week now. But thoroughly enjoyed it. Good company, good food, and it was a good game. So I can't complain at all. How about you? Did you do anything big?
Nothing big for this game. We just stayed up and watched it, But I've always been a fan of the football tailgate, and I think that's why college football is so popular in the South.
Yep,
because we have great weather for that time period. It gets so cold in other parts of the world, but we can tailgate during that time period. You throw out the pop-up tents, the pop-up tables, lay out a spread before the game, come back after the game and party a little bit afterwards. And it's just, it is a cultural thing down here.
And to add on top of that, it's not even the game. Like there's so many people that go to the tailgating, not even having tickets because they're just going to watch the game at the tailgate. Like they're just going to stay there the whole time because of the atmosphere.
Oh, I did that all the time.
Oh, I love it.
Honestly, it's just, I didn't want to buy the tickets too.
No, yeah.
That was when I was younger and didn't have any reason necessarily to want to go in and watch it and the tailgate was more fun to me usually. So, yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. Well, in this episode, we're going to do like this third part of the mini series, which we've been looking at this dynamic between parents and students and the expectations between the two, and how they're different, how they're similar maybe, how they become maybe detrimental, how they become beneficial, and then how to deal with it. And then the first one we did the academic expectations from the parents' side and the students. And the second one we did the personal expectations. And then in this one, we're going to go to the natural progression, which is what we typically, if you're going to college, what you go to college for. That's the career side. So we're going to be looking at career expectations from the parents and the students. Again, that dynamic between the two. So what do you think about that?
Excellent. Before we do, though, remind everybody, visit us on our website, Reschool'd.com. That's Reschool with a D, not an ED. Check us out on the social media handles. The website's the best, though, because that's where you can send us messages, ask us questions, give us stuff to talk about on the episode. We may even give you a shout out if you ask for a shout out. And but of course on your favorite, podcast app as well. Give us the stars, the likes, all that jazz. But tell other people about us. But right there on our website, that's the best place. All our old episodes, you can see what we've done in the past, and go from there.
And share with friends. It's a good. Valentine's Day is tomorrow. That's a good Valentine's Day present. Share this new knowledge with friends.
Absolutely. Any friends that are thinking about going to college, in college, parents who are dealing with sending their kids to college, this is the one for you.
Man, yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the quick question, which is the same quick question we had in the past two, just again geared towards career. But did your parents have any career expectations for you during college, and how would you rate those expectations?
Ooh. I don't know. You wanna go on that one first?
Yeah,
give me a second to think through this one.
My dad being from the Middle East, it was either a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. I think that's the expectations for anybody in the Middle East. It seems like in that area.
I've heard that from so many people, right? Their parents told them, you have two choices: doctor, engineer. What more do you need?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually, again, if this is your first episode, one, welcome. But two, like I've said this before, I did 2 years of pre-med. So there was the intention for me to go that route. But at the same time, as you get into college, one of the things you start to realize, hopefully, is you do a little bit more maybe research on the career area you want to go into, is that it wasn't really matching up with what I felt my needs were. Granted, the financial aspect of it was lovely, but I wanted to have more time for a family. And when doctors, you're typically, you have these times you're on call. You've got this time period of you having to go through rotations and residencies and stuff like that. And I just didn't feel like it was going to, like I said before, I'm strategically lazy. I don't want to do a whole lot. I do want to get some benefits, but I want to have time to do other things, be with family, take trips, stuff like that. And so that's when I pivoted. And fortunately, my dad being the dean of school of business, so he got his doctorate, but not his MD, he got his PhD. He understood where I wanted to go. He understood why. And the expectations were, I think it was, to narrow it down, I don't think my parents had the expectations or the drive for me to be a doctor or an engineer. They knew what my personality would be good at, but I think their expectation was I would find something that I could be successful in that would also give me a way to financially support a family and do all the things that we would like. So he wanted me to be, I would say my mom and my dad, they wanted me to be content and financially stable with whatever I choose. Whatever that may be, they were going to support me. So I don't think they had an expectation specifically for something, but I do think that their expectations is I would find something that would make me content and also be financially supportive. So with that, and rating in mind too, I will say they were very supportive, and they weren't overbearing by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, I mean, I pivoted greatly to a different side, which again, they were very supportive. So, I mean, I couldn't ask for more. I think we've talked about this before. I think we're both in kind of these unicorn situations in certain aspects, because we're not reflective of everybody, obviously. So when we talk about this stuff, we're just really coming from our perspective. So what about you?
Well, I think your scenario is exactly what most people see. Your parents want the best for you. Some people are in the unfortunate position, I guess, where their parents aren't highly involved, so they don't think two times about it, right? But for most people, most of the people going to college, their parents want the best for them. Their level of involvement may vary, and their expectations may vary. On my part, just like you, my parents wanted the absolute best for me. They saw education as being the best way for me to be successful. And growing up, my parents, struggled with money when they were younger. And, with that being said, their idea of looking out for me or wanting the best for me was to have something where you earned money, where you could have the things you wanted and things like that. So, I don't want to say that they had any specific expectations for me. They did, however, have expectations that I would work towards something. And I think for them, they realized that probably the most important thing, if you didn't have a track, like you were going down, you weren't going to be a doctor, or you weren't going to, you didn't have a career plan as soon as you went in, that the important thing was to get a college degree so that afterwards you could go get a good job.
Sure.
And, that's a good way of thinking in my mind. They had not gone to college, but they knew that people who went to college usually started out with a higher salary. And over the course of your life, it makes a dramatic difference. Even an investment in undergraduate of $300,000 or $400,000 worth of debt still pays better dividends over your life than the stock market ever has. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy? Like,
Yeah.
so that being said, yes, they had expectations for me, but there was no pressure for a given career or to do anything specific. I mean, I ended up as a Spanish major, so that should tell you that they were just hoping that I figured something out and got a college degree. So, and I changed from that to that from biology. So, which the path for biology is oftentimes, medical researcher or medical school, something of that nature. So,
well, let's get into the main topic. The idea of parents, like the thing I have the problem with, and before we get into the main topic, the part I have I see in some of my students is there's a difference between support and there's a difference between, I'm going to use terms that I was helping my wife in her research paper earlier. It kind of makes it bringing it home. There's a difference between nudging and shoving. A parent can be supportive, but they can also be overtly driving students into an area they don't want to be. Mm-hmm. And that's the area, one of the reasons why I feel like we came up with this series, with this dynamic between the parent and the student, because we see it all too often. I know I did, advising students. I'm sure you did as well, where, you ask them, why are you in college? And they go, my parents made me. Mm-hmm. And does this have anything to do with the career that you want to go? No, not really. Well, good on you. But it's a time commitment. It's a financial commitment. And you could be doing something else if this is not what you're planning on using. If you're not planning on using a bachelor's to do what you want, it could be almost a waste. So,
but as much as anything else, I think parents want security for their kids, right?
Of course.
I mean, some parents are at that top of that Maslow's hierarchy and say they want their kids to be everything in the world they could be. They want them to be famous, or they want them to be super wealthy, or they want them to be everything. Where a lot of parents are just, I want them to be provided for. I want them to, be happy. I want them to be contented in what they're doing. Some of those general lower level need stuff, love, friendship, protection, food, shelter, all that kind of things. So it's, parents aren't wrong, I would say, in any way to say, hey, have a plan. You don't have a plan. You don't have any direction. Well, I don't want to cut you loose this early without at least pointing you down the stream in the right direction. So at a bare minimum, make good grades, right? At a bare minimum, have some idea of the things that you could potentially explore as a career, something to do some internships in, right? Something to take some classes in and things like that. Too often students come to college and they have no idea. They have no direction whatsoever. And I think those are the ones, if you have parents who are involved, that's kind of opening the door or inviting them to exert more influence into what you ultimately decide to do. Because again, if they want the best for you, they're not going to just leave it up to chance that, hopefully he'll find himself, and hopefully, they're in more ways than one, they're trying to help you figure it out by putting some pressure in terms of, here, take these classes, see what that's about, here, do this internship, here, network with these people, that type of thing. So I see that all the time with students. And I'm sure your dad, being in business, was very much on that wagon as well, in terms of you need to network and you need to take classes that will help you explore things, right?
Absolutely. And that's a great segue into the first main question, which again, these are just we're it's kind of a copy and paste from the other ones, except we're dealing this from the career side. But how can parents' expectations towards the career be valuable to students during college? And then also, at what point do they turn detrimental?
Well, the value is just, exactly what I just said, right? I mean, if you have no direction, then they can help you find some direction in a way. Really, they're just trying to be supportive. So, some people are autonomous enough that someone else's involvement just needs to be minimal, right?
Yeah.
Here's some financial help, perhaps, if the parents can afford it and the student needs it. here's some of my experiences. Here's some people you could talk to find your direction in terms of what you should study. Sometimes they try to exert influence when it comes to whether you should join fraternities or sororities. Sometimes, whether it's you should play on a sports team, something like that, right? They just want to be there in support of a generally positive direction that you're going. Sure. Okay, so in my mind, that's the truly positive aspect. What do you think?
I think there's a couple ways where parents' expectations can be valuable, like truly valuable to a student. First one is actually both of the two that come to mind right off the bat are really more focused on the beginning years of school, of going to college. So you're talking about freshman year. And that's one, parents generally, I'm not going to say this is a totality, but parents generally have a better idea of career possibilities. They understand what opportunities are out there. They understand what it takes to be able to have these opportunities, so what degree you have to have or what certification you got to have. They understand those kind of things. And they also typically understand the market. So they understand where there's a high demand, which then therefore turns into, potential financial benefits in terms of salaries and pay. So that's a good resource right off the bat to have. To be able to talk to your parents and say, okay, here are my likes, here are my dislikes, here are the things that I can see myself doing for years and being content with. Like my son, he'll come and he says, I don't see myself working a desk job by any stretch of the imagination. I see myself working with my hands, doing maybe some kind of service for someone. And we just kind of going around and say, okay, electricians out there, plumbers out there, HVAC's out there, linemen for electrical companies, that's out there. These are all possibilities. And then we kind of started whittling our way down to what he feels he would be the most content and have the most fun with. And so there's that aspect of it. There's that benefit that comes with it, is just having this almost a sounding board too, to throw ideas off and just get their opinions on. And then the second benefit, which is it leads off of that one that we were just talking about, is by going into college and having somewhat of a plan. You mentioned this earlier, having somewhat of a plan. Like, this is what I want to do. This is the area that I want to go in. It has the potential, knowing that going into college, it has the potential to save you money because you're not having to switch. How many students do you know that get to maybe their third year in college and then all of a sudden, like, this is not the route I want to go. I'm going to do a pivot to a different degree. And if you're talking about a completely different, like a change in school, like instead of school of business, you go to school of, liberal arts, a school of science and technology, whatever. When you go into that area, you're talking about possibly losing a bunch of credit hours, and you're going to have to make those up. So it's going to cost you. So being able to have that plan going in, and again, it's a tentative plan. We're not talking about this is going to be set in stone by any stretch of the imagination. This is what I think the area that I want to go into. So maybe if you're talking about business, maybe you don't know for sure if it's marketing or management or accounting or finance, but it's going to be somewhere in business, then at least you have narrowed that down to where you're limiting the possibility of, or the need to change and lose so many hours, if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. I mean, it's actually a pretty good segue into the other side of the question, because if you're trying to avoid a negative, right, what are some of the negatives associated with involvement to that extent? I don't know. Do you have any off the top of your head? You want me to jump in?
The first one, again, I would say that I kind of alluded to it earlier before we got into this one, is this overexertion of almost control for the student and what they should be doing in the parent size, and not considering what the student really truly wants. It's that mentality of, I know better than you about what you want and what you need. And I think that can have a detrimental impact, because just like not having a plan, you may have to pivot in college and you lose so many hours, which means you're going to have to pay for more classes to take. if you're getting pushed to go in a certain direction in college and you get that career and then you realize it's not for you and you don't want it and you're going to have to pivot careers, then you're going to have to go back and possibly get a whole new degree. And that could be even more money. So that could be where it could be, to me, detrimental. Again, coming from accounting, my mind typically goes to finance area, financial side of it. And I think that there's that level where you can nudge them or you can shove them. And if you can if you shove them, then you're starting to get in that area where it could work out. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it also has the possibility of backfiring, and it's going to cost you even more money.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, and I would piggyback on that and say, so parents oftentimes, in wanting the best for their kids, right? They certainly want to make certain those early needs are met, just having financial resources so that you have options. But they don't realize a couple of things about that. Well, there's only one thing you'll do more in your life than work, and that's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do that much of something, then you have to, if you truly do want contentment and happiness for someone, you have to hope that they will draw some of that from their work. And not having faith or confidence in your offspring that they can find something or can direct themselves towards whatever will fulfill them, make them happy. And I'm careful to use that word happy, right? Because happy's, an emotional state that's very temporary. The long-term contentment that they will be able to, over the long term, feel like they're content in what they're doing. So pushing someone towards something that yields financial success, I should say, and they're not going to be content doing it on a daily basis. So for you, for example, say you'd gone into medicine and you honestly, that was not your passion, and you figured that out. Well, honestly, it would lead to financial stability. There's no question. There's a huge investment, so you certainly have to continue working in that to pay back that early financial investment, because medical school's not cheap, along with college, right? All of that's not usually cheap. And if you're going to do that, right, make certain that the combination of the two, that the schooling, the education portion will be fulfilling for you, what you're studying, you're interested in, it will lead to something. And then what you do afterwards, because we do know oftentimes what you study isn't exactly what you'll be doing afterwards. And I think that's true even for something as specific as medical school, right? It's rare that the doctor is doing organic chemistry, right? So with that being said, parents want the best. They want financial stability. They want options. They want, what they hope that their kids can be, everything that the kid wants to be within a realm. But oftentimes their expectation for what is making it or being successful or having what you need is not what the kid's idea is. Sometimes the kid realizes early on that if I could do this, I would be more contented than having financial stability and having to do these other things. And, personally, I think probably you can as well. I don't know. You can sound in after this, but I was certainly like that. I figured it out the hard way. I'm doing all kinds of things other than practicing law because I realized that doing that is not something that I'm contented by. It's very much a desk job. No matter what field you go into of law, it is pretty much a desk job 90% of the time, with a couple of minor exceptions, and that just reduces it maybe by 20, 30%. It's still a desk job. And I wasn't really cut out for that very well. I went into being a professor, and that entails a lot of research. And I've done a lot of research, and that's not really something I'm that passionate about or interested in. So now I primarily just teach. And that is something I'm passionate about. Okay. Obviously it pays less. Your researchers make more. I think that's why you're going to get a PhD program. Am I right? Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So
they can't
with
keep
that
me out of
being
the program
said,
knowing that now.
Ultimately your kids will, students, you will find the things that content you. So when the parents think they have an idea of what will make the kids happy or will make the kids content and try to push them in that direction, expect some pushback, particularly if the student has some understanding of what they believe would make them content. So that's probably the biggest conflict, the biggest hurdle is when you're trying to overcome that.
So, question. Let me play the devil's advocate now, because we haven't really had this. We haven't had this opportunity in the other two episodes, and I want to just get your opinion. And this is the topic I'm bringing up is more from an older generation perspective. So keep that in mind too. But your kids, they're getting to the age, and we're talking yours and mine are about the same age. So 9-10 years from now, where they're getting into college, or they're starting to think to get into college, think about what they're going to do for their career. And they come up and they say, okay, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they choose something like an influencer.
Mm.
How, from a parent's perspective, do you handle that situation? Because that's something that, again, their generation's grown up with. Ours hasn't. We see the success stories. Obviously, we see the success stories of them. We also see the pitfalls of them. And how do you manage that? Which, again, that kind of leads us into the next question, which is how do you handle the relationship, which is the differences between the perspectives of the parents and students. So that kind of leads right into that. But how do you handle that?
So I'm trying to think in my situation, if my daughters came to me and said they wanted to be influencers and they wanted my support in that, well, they're going to get my support. It just depends on how and how much. So, but I think what I would probably do is ask them to make the case to me why I should support that for them, why, financial resources, how I could in other ways support them. What's your plan and what do you think the life looks like? So perhaps make them do some research.
Yeah.
Perhaps identify some of these influencers and say, well, how did they make it there? What do they do? What does their daily life look like? And then start asking maybe some of the business questions and say, there's a lot of people who do this and only one makes it. What happens if you don't make it in this? How is yours different from this? What is your concept or idea? Right? Because you still have to have that. You still have to be something of value to somebody else. And if they can make the case and then actively show me what they're working at and what they hope the outcome of what they're doing is, kind of like putting together a business plan in a way, but more just a justification, that would give me a lot of comfort in any way. And I would certainly, in that sense, be more willing to the extent possible, help them and provide support for them in that way, as long as I feel comfortable that they understand what they're getting into and they have an idea of where they want to go. I think a lot of parents, kids have very high expectations for themselves and lofty goals and ambitions. They say they want to sing on Broadway, or they want to be a professional screen actor, or they want to be a professional touring musician. And the musician, they that's obviously a little bit different than the others, but because you can certainly do that and not be famous and make a living. It's a little difficult, but you can make a living. But if they tell me those things, then perhaps I want to see again that you understand what the life is like, that you understand what that entails. And if you do the research, if you know what that means you'll have to go through, like there is a way, probably a path that you should follow, the boxes you should check to sing on Broadway. There are some things you should probably do to prepare for and be ready to potentially be on the big screen one day, right? But it's a lot more than just simply saying, I hope this falls in my lap. So anyway, That being said, have a plan. Give me some comfort that you are moving towards some level of, doing something that's going to offer contentment, and that you understand that, based upon my financial resources, I can't support you as a kid forever. I can't support you as an adult. You certainly don't want to be in a position where you have to marry someone for financial support. That's a very that's something that women oftentimes historically were forced into because they didn't have a place in the workforce. And I certainly don't want that for my daughters, right? I want them to understand that they would never have to marry or be with
Sure.
someone else for financial support, right? That should be a foregone conclusion that you can earn your own money and there will be a career for you where you can do that, not dependency on someone else, not even dependency on me, even if I could, or even if I will be able to offer it. So anyway, that would be my input. I know that's a long-winded
Sure.
answer there, but
And I
yeah,
use
that's my take on it.
influencer in the question, but you can also, switch that with singer or
Mhm.
actor or entertainer, anything of that nature, where the likelihood of you becoming a professional, so making the dollars that you see and as the actors and actresses and whatnot and are the singers, eh, you can switch that out interchangeably for each of those. My thought, or my next question maybe, because there is a lot of influencers, a lot of uh, business minded people who give advice out
Mhm.
there, and one of the pieces of advice is that they tell you, if you have this as your goal, if this is your plan and this is what you want to do, don't have a backup plan, because if you have a backup plan, you're more likely to not put as much effort into it because you have that safety net, versus if this is it, this is it. Are you on
Mhm.
board with that? So like, if you're saying you're going to be an influencer, are you somebody who is going to be, for your daughters, are you going to say, then go full blast and don't look back and don't have a safety plan? Or are you somebody that's going to say, well, maybe think about, if this fails, here, what's your backup plan going to be?
Well, wow, that's a tough question for me because
I know what my
honestly,
answer would be, but I interesting to hear yours.
well, that's something I've struggled with my entire life. I've been a high security comfort need person, and now I do have a vision of what I want for myself. I do have a vision of who I believe I could be and what I could hope to achieve and what would make me contented. But honestly, I said I was going to teach 5 years. This is my 11th year.
Yeah.
And it's because I can't break away from the security of what I've got in terms of educational job to actually be what I want to be. And in a way, I'm disappointed in myself. I don't have um, I, I'm too scared, I guess,
Yeah.
as they say, because I know the repercussions. The repercussions, if they were just for me, would mean nothing. But now I have a family and I have to support them financially. And though I do have a vision and idea, I slowly start to realize that I may never achieve that. And I'm going to hate it. I know, end of life, I'm going to look back and say, gosh, I would have, I wish I could have, but I struggle with it almost every day and I can't. Financially, honestly, I just can't, because I can't put them at risk for me, because that seems too selfish. And so I guess my answer is, while I can't do it, I always have to have this safety, this backup, this for them. If they truly want it, I would explain to them that if you are closing those doors, that what that means, how tenacious you have to be, how unrelenting, how mentally strong, and if they are willing to do that and willing to be that, then I'll support it and I'll say do that 100%. Don't try to have a safety net to fall back on, because you can always build a safety net in later. This is one of those things, as you fall, you really can build your own safety net as you're falling. So with that being said, yeah, I'm on that page. I believe that if you truly do want to be everything you can be, when it's a very lofty goal and a very low likelihood of making it, that yeah, you can't do the second thing. And that is probably one of the reasons why I may never be who I want to be. So
See, I'm on the other side on that one, because I'm like you. There's a sense of security where if you can build a safety net, and again, I'm not when I say building a safety net or having a backup plan, I'm not saying it's too imposing on your goal, but it does give you that. So for instance, if you're talking about being an influencer, you will hopefully. I mean, again, I don't know this for a fact, and I know some of these the stories, the anecdotal evidence, the stories that we see of super successful influencers. This is not them. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about just the average person trying to get their feet wet, trying to get into the space in some capacity. They're going to have some time. Being able to go to college while you're doing that to get a degree, just in case it doesn't work out, to me is the safer move. But again, it goes back into, are you willing to take away some of that emphasis to have a safety plan, or are you wanting to go, gangbusters right towards the goal and not look back? It's a tough one, and that's a tough one that I think parents. I think that's probably going to be where the biggest divide between parents and students are going to lie, because parents, like as your prime example, you just said it. You said if it was just you, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But now that you have a family, meaning you are a parent, you have this sense of security because you don't want the actions of your decisions to affect, your family. And so I think parents inherently are going to have that need for safety. And so when it comes to pursuing a lofty goal, they're probably going to want, and they're going to push for that safety net, because that's what we have. We understand the value of it. Whereas a student who is just themselves, they have no family, that they're supporting themselves. They don't have that same feeling. They don't have that same need because they don't have those same people. So I think that's probably where the greatest divide is between the two parties is, that need for safety and where it's coming from. One feels it and the other one hasn't seen it yet. So, handling the relationship, again, we've said this for the past 2 episodes, and we're going to say it for this one because I think it's the most important, the single biggest thing that you can do to help the situation when there's this big divide is the communication between the two parties. To be able to talk through things, have the parents be the sounding boards for the students, and the students understanding the value that can come from the parents, and they kind of work through this. Like you said, put together a plan. If it's a lofty goal, understand the perils, understand the limitations, understand the likelihood, the nature of it, but also understand the top end, understand the ceiling part side too. Because obviously there's very successful influencers, singers, actors, all that kind of stuff. So being able to formulate those kind of things and talk through it and understand it from both perspectives. Again, I think I said it in the first episode, and I should have said it in the second episode, and I'll say it in this one too. But, there's a sense of grace that you have to understand, you have to give, because they, both perspectives, both ideas come from a different point in life. We have different things that we have to continue. I would not have done half the things that I did in college right now because then I didn't have anybody to worry about. Now I do. So I think communication is, again, key. And I say this from a parent and a student, and I say this to parents and to students. The line of communication needs to be open. The understanding of both sides need to be open. Students, you need to understand that parents are doing our best. We only want the best. I don't think there's a parent. I hope there's not a parent out there that says, well, I just want my student to fail. No, we want the best. And we know from our growing up what it takes to be successful. So we have that side of it. So you can't think it from a student's perspective. You can't think parents don't know what they're talking about. And then from a parent's perspective, you can't just assume that students don't know what they're talking about. You can't just assume that they're not smart enough or they're not mature enough to really understand it. They may not know every detail about it, but they're mature enough to understand it. That's where, you as a parent come in, is you coach them up, you understand, you help them understand the pieces that they're missing, but don't take that away. That would be my hint or my tip to make the situation better. So what do you think?
Nope, that is great advice, and I think we could probably go into a whole another episode on parental advice and how you deal with it. Maybe that'll be a good one for the docket. But no,
Yeah.
that's really I got on the topic. I think we covered it.
Good deal. Well, this has been a good one. This little 3-part mini-series that we had has been interesting. And you know, when we came up with this series, this parent-student dynamic series, our whole episode, our whole podcast has been for students going into college and leaving college, going into the career. We wanted to open up one for the parents, but still have the student as the center focus. So what we're hoping for is that students, you're listening to this and you're getting value from it, but also you can take it to your parents and listen to them with them, or get them to listen to it, and then you have an open conversation. You have the ability, like at least me, and I would say Jason's the same way. You know, I hope we're able to open doors for you that otherwise maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable doing on your own. And so, you know, take it for what it's worth, use it for what you need it for, and hopefully everything will, you know, your understanding on both sides will improve here and there where it needs to be. So, well, this has been a good episode. I've enjoyed it. You got anything to say before we head out?
Just remind everybody, hit us up on the website, communicate with us, let us know what you want to hear, because again, and of course, give us the likes, give us the shares, all that kind of stuff, because that's what's going to keep us going.
Awesome. Well, we hope you enjoyed the show. We hope to see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.